are back inside the famous Noman green screen hangar. Well, in behind the Noman's green screen hangar inside the Noman store. I'm here with some of the usual suspects for me, old-time friends, Zack Petroc. We've got Dylan Ekren, also a Nomanite at one time, holding a microphone. And I'm going to try not to butcher this. Sergi Caballer. Ah, muy bien, muy bien. For all the fans at home in España, saludamos. All the people at home in Barcelona, right? Exactly. His hometown of Barcelona. And then we have Alena Wooten. And I said that correct as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, why don't we start with the new kid on the block really quickly? Because, we should put him right into the fire, right?
Let's do it.
You were born in Spain?
Yeah.
And
Barcelona.
In Barcelona. So that's amazing. And tell us a little bit about what it was like to be surrounded by that kind of environment and how that framed your artistic impressions of the world around you. You can give him the microphone. Please and thank you. Just hold it up a bit.
I
Crack the whip here.
don't know.
Yeah.
I guess there is a big tradition of art in Barcelona and Spain. So not all big tradition of painters, art, and architecture, especially in Barcelona. So, but I always was since a kid I was like very inspired by Disney or Pixar on being part of the industry, and I guess it was a mix of both things that put me in that way to someday try to come here.
You feel that some things had conspired. Talk about your early education in Spain. You were an art major?
I study digital design and kind of graphic design, and at that moment before to go to college, I know it that I want to do 3D. At that moment, I didn't know exactly where, but
Right.
in fact I started with 16 doing 3D things at home, so I was really focused on that thing. But when I entered to college, it was kind of a workaround on my career because I was working doing websites and all that kind of stuff.
And you were living in Spain, which
Yeah.
no one would sort of blame you for getting a little distracted, as it were.
Exactly.
Yeah, especially in Barcelona.
Yeah, it's easy.
It's a
to
wonder
get
you even
distracted.
graduated,
Yeah.
man. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
Batallón mean anything to you? Yeah.
Close to Ibiza,
Right.
so it's
Okay, but it seems like you were very poised in that regard to go forward in this computer design and computer-aided career. And I think if people look a little deeper, they'll find that you also have this, not to mention an eclectic series of models on your website, but you're also driven by sort of that technical aspect of things. Tell us about that. There's this dichotomy with you that goes.
It's
almost like two people.
Yeah, I don't know. I like the thing about problem solving. So I'm also maybe it's because I had this background about doing websites and scripting and all of that. So that enters me to the scripting side. So yeah, I used to work as a rigger in the past, and yeah, that's two sides of my things that makes that when I'm working at home working on my own projects, I never finish my project because I want to model, I want to rig, and I want to do both things. So it's became a mess for personal projects. But
I think I can understand where you're coming from with that. Is it was it Miley Cyrus calls it a wrecking ball? Never mind. But I think that prepares you for something you were talking about on the main stage. If you pass the mic to Zack here, you were talking about MVP, and I wanted to dig deeper. Somebody tried to Shanghai me with a question there inside of the auditorium when it comes to MVP, and we're talking about that as a process. Could we discuss that even further? And basically what Sergi is saying is that he sort of came to the fold with the ability to detach himself in some way from the artistic side of the work and just kind of pass it off.
I think...
what's the struggle for you personally or as a group?
Yeah, well, one other story relative to the MVP is there's a professor who taught ceramics, and he took his class to do an experiment, and he divided it into two sections. And the first section, he said, I want you to take this entire semester and create one vessel. Entire semester. Make it as absolutely beautiful and perfect as possible. That's what you're going to be graded on. Then he took the other half, and he said, I want you to make as many vessels as possible. And that's what you're going to be graded on. The number of vessels you end up with at the end of this entire semester. So, at the end of that semester, one of those groups was incredibly more talented than the others? Which one would you guess? I'll put you on the spot.
I mean, I'm probably going to go with the quantity over the quality, to be completely honest.
There
with
you go. You are correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and back to that question of MVP and murdering your darlings and letting these ideas go, it's the same thing that we do at Disney. You can't worry about that perfection of one specific object. You need to get out there and do it. I found myself falling into that same trap when I was developing my own IP, my own stories. You get so involved in what you're doing, you become narrow-minded in a way.
Yeah, myopic in some ways, right?
Exactly. So I had to take a step back and started developing 3 to 4 to 5 at a time. And I find that just working through that process breathes life into all of those projects that you're working on. So yeah, it was really fascinating and an eye-opener for me. And that, I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg, coming to that conclusion on my own by being in that myopic perspective, or being at Disney and forced to see that and experience it every day.
Maybe the deadline kind of contributed to that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Says, hey, okay, I got to do this.
Right. Yeah, you got to get a deadline, and then you are in a position where day after day, what you're working on can be gone the next day.
Yeah.
So you learn to appreciate
And
the
when you say
value
gone, you
of
mean
getting
gone
out
for
of the
good.
movie. Yep,
Yeah,
out of the
you
movie,
mean
and never to see the light of
The
day
light
within
into
our
the
culture.
dark caverns of the ether of
Exactly.
dust on the floor and swept.
Lives and dies by the story.
Right. I was so happy that you said that, because there is this sort of idea that you can fix or adjust things with a bunch of 20 minutes worth of explosions does not make a good film.
Right.
It's good to put me to sleep on a plane ride
Exactly.
across the world.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I hope that made sense when I was
made sense to
saying
me,
that.
I mean.
Yeah, I do feel like a great story can carry bad effects, but bad effects cannot fix a bad story.
You know what it brings me? I remember finding this quote. It was a Hemingway quote, and it was it's a very short story. It's 3 lines. I think it's 3 lines. For sale, children's shoes never used. It's pretty heavy, right? I mean, that's like, but
Yeah.
man, that's something. It's
Right.
like,
Yeah,
you know.
you could build a short around
Yeah,
that.
and if you get it down enough, you
Right.
can really build a world. So I think there's something to be said about that literacy. Before we get carried away, I know we're on a bit of a time crunch because, hey, listen, these movies don't make themselves, people. The University of Colorado, the Cleveland Institute of Art, you've been doing some great teaching or speaking engagements and teaching engagements. Tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, I have. I've been very fortunate, I feel, like, in my career. When I think all the way back to the robots on Sky Captain to the robot in Big Hero 6, I've had a lot of great opportunities, and I'm into giving back. I feel like there are a lot of opportunities for revolutions in our industry. I love going out and speaking and trying to inspire and giving insight when I can, and maybe help people avoid some of the pitfalls I've taken. At some point in time, it's not even about mistakes, but it's more about looking at a through line of where I've come and thinking about, if I were to go back 10 years, how would I retune what I've been doing? How would I focus it? What have I learned along the way that I finally realize now what I want my career to become? How would I reapproach that if I had 10 years more time to do it?
It's interesting to hear you say that. You start to get a little older, or maybe more experienced, rather. Let's reframe that. You start to get more
A
experience.
lot older.
Stop. You get more experience, and I also feel the same way. Lately, I just think, what can I do to contribute to other people's sort of path and help them? And that's what took me into teaching full time. I thought, I'll try to make a better world around me.
Right.
And try to
No, it's
facilitate
very
some growth
important.
for people.
It's extremely important. I think it's part of this entire process.
Yeah.
So it's cool. It's cool to be at that point now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. You've always been a sort of mellow and sweet gentleman.
Thanks.
So it's a pleasure to have you here again. I'm going to
Thank you.
I want us to pass the mic off to this guy. Fellow Nomanite and all around sort of funny guy. He wants to be taken seriously. Right?
Always that word.
Check out his website. It's I want to ask him to tell us about being a respected artist and adult.
Oh, yeah. That's
that
been
like for you?
a couple of years now. Yeah, well, I mean, you work towards it just like anything else.
Right.
And then someone finally tells you you've made it.
Right. And here we are, right? And now we're lights, camera, action inside the
Yeah.
famous green screen. Who would have thought that the two of us would be sitting again for the third time in a row,
Yeah.
right, inside of the old faithful Noman store,
I
which has
know.
evolved and expanded
There's so much
immensely.
stuff.
So, but you're also, on a personal note, you're chasing a lot of kids around these days, and I don't mean the neighbors' kids, I mean your own. So that's amazing, right? Get over here! I need some reference, right? Okay.
Yeah, that's really good incentive to use any personal time that I have to the fullest. So
Right, yeah, because it gets pretty hairy, right? I mean, you also have a family. It's like,
Yeah. So I'm doing that now too.
okay, so how do you, let me ask you, because this is something, yeah, twins, too. This guy
Twins.
here, when he does something, holy smoke. He's twice the artist, twice the man, and he's not twice the trouble. So here, and twice as funny as most guys, but here's the thing. How do you handle those, because this is a great sort of question for guys and gals who are coming up and who are sort of leaving that comfort zone of being, you know, sort of free. I see how I say free, right? Schedule-wise, more free than people with families. How do you handle or tackle the new responsibilities at home and at work?
I mean, it's a lot of just prioritizing, you know, what's important. So, you know, I don't have time to play games and, you know, things
Right.
like that anymore.
Yeah,
and
same here.
And so it's all about just like I have a limited amount of time available to me. So how do I put in how do I get the most return out of that time?
Right.
Is kind of, I've had to switch my thinking to just like throwing my time at something to kind of something that Zack talked about during the presentation, is like really focusing my efforts on what I'm doing to get the most yield out of that.
That's how I try to do my business at the gym. I try not to hang out there more than I have to. I'm just, yeah, right. Hey, thank you. I've been working really hard all year, you know, training for this event here. They got the sculpt off and everything. But I think there is that might transcend into that pragmatic approach that you guys have been demonstrating. I've always marveled at the workflow, the efficiency, and basically the output. You know, really, I'm obviously a fan. I want to start singing the Frozen theme song because I know you have to get on with it. But we will do as the song says in Frozen, let it go, let it go. The cold never bothered them anyway. On behalf of these guys, all the rest of the Disney family, myself, Louis Tucci, and everybody at Pixologic, and the Noman School of Visual Effects, I want to thank you guys, you know, basically for being here and sitting with me. Zack, thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much. Good to see you. It's very good to have you. So back inside the Noman green screen hangar, back over to you, Paul, and the rest of the fans, and all of the fans around the world who are feverishly smashing their keyboards in anticipation for the next sort of giveaway. We'll catch you in a little bit. Thanks.